Day. That's all it's about.
Looking good.
I see we are live.
All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. The meeting will come to order. This is the meeting of the Human Rights Commission. Welcome to the February 2nd Groundhog Day edition meeting of the West Hartford Human Rights Commission. My name is Dawn Ennis. I am the co-chair of the Human Rights Commission. This meeting is being conducted in a virtual format in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act as amended by Public Act number 21-2, which authorizes municipalities to conduct public meetings virtually. Members of the public can view the meeting live on West Hartford Community Television at whctv.org and on YouTube at YouTube.com/WHCTV5. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing and will be available on the town's website for at least 45 days. Since we are conducting this meeting in a virtual format, there are some special rules and procedures that I need to cover before we begin. First, I ask all participants to mute their device when you are not speaking. If you wish to be recognized, please either raise your hand or use the raise your hand function of the WebEx, and I will call on you in the order that I see hands raised, or when someone tells me, hey, you missed somebody. If you're participating by audio only, or if I do not call on you and the debate is ending, then please unmute your phone and say, hey, let me know so that I can recognize you. Second, all speakers must make a good faith effort to state their person's own name and title at the outset of each occasion that such person participates in the meeting. Third, all votes must be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. I don't really get that one. Well, whatever. Fourth, a reminder that if any participant has a problem with connectivity, immediately call Pramod Pradhan, whose phone number you were provided earlier. He will let you know, and we will recess the meeting while the problem is resolved. If it cannot be resolved quickly, we will ask you to call into the meeting again using a phone and participate via audio only. It is time now for the roll call. Our co-chair, Issam Boré, could not join us tonight, so I'm going to just say that I am here present, and now let me do the roll call. I'm going to do the order of people I see in my Brady box. Takesha.
Present.
Sarah Raskin.
Present.
Ted Mancini.
Here.
Aurora Majlida.
Here.
Eric Schoenberg.
Here.
And our facilitator, Pramod.
Here.
Hello, Pramod. So let me get the agenda up, which is on my phone, but I'm going to have to just quickly do something. Give me a second. Yes, I trust this computer. Silly.
Aurora did put it in the chat, just so you know.
She did. How exciting. It's just that I haven't had a chance to move over to my thing. So we have attendance. And now I'm going to skip the item approval of January 2021 meeting minutes, and I'll explain why. These minutes, due to a technical problem, have not been yet completed, but will be sent to the members forthwith within this month of February, and we will approve them at the March meeting. Are there any objections or questions about this process?
No, I just want to appreciate our secretary.
I want to second that appreciation. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the business item on the agenda, which is the location for our March regular meeting, which at the moment is here on WebEx. Does anyone have any objections to us continuing to meet on WebEx? Does anyone wish to speak about meeting in person starting in March? Hearing no comments, I say that Pramod and Aurora, if you would note that we will be meeting again virtually in March, and we will include this question again on the March agenda to see if we should meet in person. Pramod.
Hey, this is Pramod. I just wanted to ask all the commissioners, when we are ready to meet in person, let's hope anytime soon, is everyone okay if I schedule that here at Faxon Library?
As opposed to, this is Dawn Ennis, co-chair, as opposed to meeting in the Elmwood Center or Town
That's
Hall?
correct. That's correct.
So this is Sarah asking. The only question I would have is if the town knows about, because they'll be advertising to the public, et cetera, et cetera. We need to have a room big enough in case the public want to come. I love it. And thank you for offering to host us, Pramod. That's very kind of you. But just to be sure that, and you're our liaison, so I know that you'll do this, but just to be sure that the town knows and that the town is, there isn't some reason that we shouldn't do it.
Yes, so this is Pramod again. Yeah, I spoke with Essie and all the folks, and they said it's okay. The only reason is, I have more control over here, and it's just across the street. In terms of if we want to do like, virtual and in person combined together, everything, all the electronical stuff, computers, TV, everything, I have control over it as compared to the senior center or town hall. It's easier, it's just close by. So that's one of the reasons. And I spoke with SE and they said, that's fine. If the commissioners agree, they're happy with it.
This is Sarah Askin. I'm totally happy with it. I will say that I was disappointed when they moved us to Elmwood because I know this may be true of some of you. It was certainly true of me. There were times in which I tag teamed because every meetings are on the same night. So I would tag team between Board of Ed meetings or town council meetings, running back and forth between the two spaces in town hall. But there's no difference in that sense between Elmwood and the library. And I just, I agree with you. We never will have a conflict or a reason to get bumped or a reason to have any issues the way we used to. So I love that you're offering.
Yeah, so this is Pramod again. Yes, what I thought is if it's town hall, that's fine. I mean, it's good. As you said, you can, jump between the meetings but if it's Elmwood Senior Center, I think it's better to have it at Faxon.
This is Eric Schoenberg. I think Sarah's point is well taken about being in proximity to everything else that's going on at the town center. So my feeling would be if we could be at town hall where the room where it happens, as they say from Hamilton, might make it easier a bit. But if the decision is to stick with Elmwood, I think Vermont's suggestion would work.
This is Don as co-chair. I used to meet with Sarah and the previous members of the commission in the basement of town hall, and it never seemed to be a problem. So why would we not continue doing that once we are able to do in person? Unless, again, I understand Pramod's reasons. That makes sense.
No, we got moved out of town hall to Elmwood because there was just no room in town hall anymore. So they got tired of trying to find space for every different meeting that was happening all at the same time. And so we were officially moved to Elmwood by the town. And I don't know if there's any option to change back. So I think our choice at this moment, Pramod, correct me if I'm wrong, is Elmwood or the library. But if people are comfortable, I may reach back out and just ask about town hall.
This is Pramod again. Yes, Sarah. So if we can get the town hall, that's the preferred spot. If we, don't get the town hall room, and if we get moved to the Elmwood Senior Center, I think it's better to have it at the library.
This is Eric. So it seems like the consensus would be town hall if reasonably possible. If not, then Vermont's suggestion.
This is Pramod again. So I just wanted to ask all the commissioners if that's okay.
Yeah, this is Ted Mancini. Pramod, that's fine. If we can get town hall, then we should do it there. If not, then I have no issues with the library as long as it can accommodate in case we have people that want to come and speak.
Yeah, Aurora Melita here. I agree.
Keisha Everett, I agree.
This is Pramod. Thank you.
Next.
We can hear you, Don.
Don, I think you're muted.
You're muted, Don.
Yes, I am. Thank you, everyone who just said I'm muted. I heard you. I was having connection issues because I had to switch from my dying phone to this laptop, which looks like I'm in a 70s horror movie. But I missed the conclusion of the discussion, which I can watch on YouTube or read the minutes, but would someone just quickly summarize for me where it ended before we move on?
This is Eric. So, Ted,
Go ahead, Eric.
this is Eric. That the preference, if possible, will be town hall, and if not, then Pramod's suggestion.
Great, Faxon. Thank you very much. I appreciate you catching me up on that, and I apologize for missing out. The next item of business, let me just go to it. It's right here. There it is Eric is going to discuss the availability of radon kits, which Sarah shared on our Facebook page. Eric, would you present to us this latest thing on radon kits?
So, the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District indicated that they were making radon testing kits available. And for those that are not familiar with radon, radon is a naturally occurring gas that there is no way to sense or smell. And it's commonly done as part of home inspections, but it is optional. So it's not always part of the standard home testing. So potentially it's something that people should do that may have not had the opportunity to pay for, or maybe they're renting and it wasn't included as part of terms of the lease. So the health district has made testing kits available free of charge at their location in Bloomfield. It's 580 Cottage Grove Road, Suite 100. However, there are limited quantities, as we experienced ourselves when my wife went to go pick one up. So I would encourage calling them first, finding out if they have them in stock, because apparently it's become very popular. Their number is 860-561-7900. So my advice would be to call first, find out whether they have them available, and then grab one. It's generally, I think it's about a 48-hour test. There's a little pod that you would set up in the lowest level of your house. And then after 48 hours, you come back and collect it. And normally it would have readings. I don't know how this particular one reads out, or whether they send it for testing, because we weren't able to acquire one, but I'm sure it has pretty self-explanatory directions. I see the question. The number again was 860-561-7900.
And Eric, would you also mind adding, and this is Don Ennis, co-chair, adding the address into the chat as well for those people who are participating and want to get the address?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Aurora, if you would include those in our minutes, that would be great. Sarah, thank you for putting that up on our Facebook page. If maybe we could make that a monthly thing. I have a question. I'm not sure if Eric can answer this. I moved here 18 years ago last month. We had a radon test done because that's what you do when you inspect a home. Is that something that someone should do on a regular basis? Like, in other words, like every some certain number of years?
So I do not know the answer for sure. However, my strong indication would be yes, that would be a smart thing to do periodically, because it depends on the natural occurrences of gases and minerals in the property, in the earth directly beneath your property. And of course, the earth is ever changing and ever shifting. So my assumption would be that the makeup of whatever's going on beneath your home will shift over time. So my assumption would be it would be a smart thing to do periodically.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any questions or any comments about Eric's presentation before we move on? Great. Ted Mancini, do you have a report for us on the crime petition?
Yeah, they're supposed to be drafting some letter, I think, to the House, and I actually just got a text that said that in their meeting tonight, it did not come up. They were reminded that the legislature should be back in session, and that they should be, talking about it again as a committee, and everyone agreed. I know when Mary proposed this crime bill, I'm going to call it, that she was looking for a vote on it, and they pushed it over to committee. And the committee so far has not, done anything to try to get a vote on it. And now they're at the point where they said that, I don't know if it was the town manager or someone was going to draft a letter to the legislature as to the parts that they agreed with, disagreed with. I'm not sure, but it still wasn't going to come up to a vote in the town council. So I'm not actually 100% sure why they wouldn't want to vote on it, but that's where we sit right now. It's still in committee.
Thank you. And for those who are listening, or maybe someone doesn't know, the Mary that Ted's referring to is Town Councilor Mary Fay, who's also the chair of the Republican Party and now running for controller in Connecticut.
Yeah, she's the minority.
She's the minority leader, right?
Yeah.
Ted, my biggest question regarding this would be, is there any valid explanation as to why it hasn't been voted on, or is it just the process is what the process is? I'm just curious.
I mean,
Even
there's
if you have a guess.
a lot of conjecture as to why it hasn't been voted on, but there is no real reason why. Because as far as I know, it's mostly informational. It's trying to get the legislature to vote on a crime bill. That's all it is stating that, West Hartford supports that the legislature votes on a crime bill. And for some reason, the town council does not want to vote on that. Now, that's something that you'd actually have to bring up with the majority party, because they control what the agenda is. I'm not 100% sure as to why. And again, there's a lot of conjecture as to why they might or might not. But right now it sits in limbo, and the town council, the mayor, does not want to bring it up.
Let me throw it up to Ted first, but if anyone else would like to, if Ted defers, reach out to the majority party, either the mayor or one of the other council members who are Democratic, and ask them, for an update. Ted, you first, if you prefer, or we can defer to someone else to ask for that update.
I think that it should actually come from me, but it should also come from a Democratic individual on the committee, so that they get it from both sides, to ask as to why, so that they don't think that I'm just hitting them because I happen to be a Republican nominee.
Can I just ask, and I apologize this, why is this an issue that we're involved in? What's in the bill? I just don't know. Have we read a copy of the bill? Is there a reason that we want them to vote on it? I'm just trying to get a sense of what our role is here.
It was, I would have to really research the bill. I think the bill was just for the town, saying that they support, and I'm not 100% sure as to what the crime, quote unquote, crime bill is at the legislature. I'd have to do more research on that. But with all the incidences of crime, especially in town, with the catalytic converters being stolen, with people's cars being stolen, people's cars being broken into, with all the increased, carjackings that have happened in town. Actually something you've never heard of in town before, shootings in town, stabbings in town, robberies in town. People have been concerned with all the crime that spiked in town, and they wanted the legislature to start to actually concentrate on this, and to come down a little bit harder, concentrate a little bit more on crime. And it was just actually a vote to get the legislature to look at crime, and actually look at, like, maybe looking at especially juvenile incidences of crime in the state. And we haven't been able to even get a vote on that.
So there is data on that, and I think there are reports on that we could look at. Also comparing, since the law was changed around juvenile sentencing, before and after, and we can definitely look at those data, and I'd be happy to do that. I just am not comfortable with us urging the town council to vote on something that I don't know anything about, and I haven't seen it, and I don't know if it has human rights implications, if they're positive or negative. Sorry, go ahead.
If I can clarify, please. So in October, this debate was happening right before the election. And what the commission has been doing has been inquiring as to whether there'll be a vote, not asking for a vote, not suggesting a vote, but what this commission has been doing, and Ted has been leading this, has been asking for an update as to what is the committee that was voted upon by the council doing to consider this vote. So a vote was postponed by the council, a committee was formed, and Ted was assigned to check in with the committee to find out what their progress has been. And so far, the committee, according to Ted, has not yet taken action. And while there may be some question as to whether people want the bill or don't want, want the council to refer to the legislature or not, we're just trying to inquire as the Human Rights Commission as to what is happening, as crime is part of our human experience and part of our town, and we are hopefully a check on the town council in terms of making sure that they're being held accountable. I hope that answers your question.
And
It doesn't, I'm sorry, but I'll let other people speak.
Ted?
well, Aurora was first. I'll go after Aurora. That's fine.
Oh, I didn't see Aurora, and I apologize.
Okay.
Aurora.
No, sorry. Aurora Melita here. I just wanted to share, based off memory, I believe this was something that we talked about like a few months back when it was happening, and we thought it would be a good idea to kind of monitor and stay updated just to see what the town was doing. There wasn't a lot of like meat in the bill at that time, but it was being heavily debated. So I think as a commission, we wanted to just follow to see the process and ultimately see what was going to be in it, and then have a discussion to see if it was something that we wanted to interject or not on. So right now we're continuing, Ted's continuing to monitor it and kind of share updates. At least that's my understanding. I don't know if that makes sense, Ted, to you, if that sounds right.
Yeah, that does sound right. But you know something, to Sarah's concerns, to be fair, you know what, Sarah? I'll bring for the next meeting, I'll bring exactly what Mary's motion was, and I'll bring exactly what she wants them to vote on. From A to Z, I'll bring all the information, and that way the whole commission is well informed on everything that's going on, and along with an update as to what's happening at that time.
So appreciate you, Ted.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you. That
problem.
would just make me feel so much more like I know what's going on. And
Yeah.
again, I apologize if I missed things.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. Don't as co-chair, Ted, do you want to select someone, or should I just ask for volunteers to join you in this?
No, I'll take care of it. I'll deal with my connections on the committee and with some of the town councilors, and I'll go from there, and I'll bring you all the information for next meeting.
And if you check the chat box, Takesha has been kind enough to supply us with a weha.com article regarding background. Also, if there's any way to get that information to us prior to the meeting so people can review it before March, whatever it is, we'd be grateful.
Yeah, that's fair. And if I need any help, I'll reach out. But yeah, I'll deal with all my contacts, and I'll get you all the information I have before the next meeting so it can go on the agenda and no one's surprised. No problem.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions regarding this item before we move on? Thank you. All right. We had an email exchange on Martin Luther King Day, and I asked Aurora, and then called her something else. I think I called you Michelle or something, to put us on the agenda as far as how that discussion took shape. And I'm sorry Isam couldn't be here to join us because it was his idea that we put out a West Hartford Human Rights Commission statement of some kind, or a Facebook post or something to sort of say, hey, it's MLK Day and our West Hartford Human Rights Commission says this. With very little forethought and time, I pulled my favorite quote from MLK from his letter from Birmingham jail, and I wrote a little something about human rights, and then we had a discussion. The reason I wanted it to be discussed tonight wasn't because of any negativity, but only because I think we could have, as a commission, planned this much better. It wasn't like it's a surprise. They have this every year. I think that we, as a commission, should be more thoughtful to look ahead and say, we know that this day is coming. Let's have someone compose something and let's put it out there, and then we can all discuss it prior to it being, debated. And the only thing that really upset me wasn't the back and forth. I love the back and forth. It was the amount of time it took because we're all just basically busy doing our lives. And I wanted to open up the floor to any other comments. Eric.
This is Eric Schomer. So I'm going to step out more broadly on this issue because I'm sure that Martin Luther King Day isn't the only day where a statement might be appropriate. So my proposal is that we think about a list of days, holidays, remembrances, etc., that might be appropriate, and we can all suggest additions to and create like a bank of days. And moving forward, potentially the secretary can indicate, hey, 2 months before that day, this is going to be an agenda item. Martin Luther King Day is in 2 months. This day is in 2 months. This day is in 2 months. And then we can have a discussion and come together on something moving forward.
It was exactly my thought, Eric. So thank you for saying that more eloquently. Yeah, I agree. We should draft a list. And Dawn, thank you for raising this. It's a really, really great suggestion. And we can just make a list of days that we know are coming up. Of course, there will be other things that will happen. So in the past, we've made statements when events in the world occur, and those we do need to respond to maybe in real time. But I think you're absolutely right, both of you, that we could have an ongoing list of dates that we all agree in advance are appropriate for a statement.
Great, I agree. Takesha first, and then Eric.
Well, I think something like this definitely, this is Takesha Everett. And I do think something like this definitely requires forethought and planning, because there are a lot of things that people will miss in the context of doing something like this. I apologize, as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, I didn't see these emails because they were redirected to a wrong inbox. And so I've been catching up as we've been talking. To what I had not seen. And I think no opposition to actually making a statement on MLK Day. But there are a lot of days in recognition of the human lived experience and in populations. This is Black History Month, and yesterday was Lunar New Year. Sorry, I think I need to attend to my puppy. So yes, I think we need to be strategic about
priorities. All right, so Eric, you had your hand raised, and then Ted.
I'll nominate a few days, and this is just, we'll nominate days and then we'll talk about them. It's just because you throw something out there doesn't mean it's necessarily going to stick. So I'd like to propose Holocaust Remembrance Day, Veterans Day, and Memorial Day. That's just off the top of my head.
Sarah,
no objection to any of those, but could I propose that we start like a Google Doc? Because I'm afraid off the top of our heads,
right,
we might be missing things, or we might end up with discussions about some things and not others. So if it's okay with you, Eric, and we can start with those three, because I think those are all great suggestions.
And Lunar New Year and
Lunar New Year,
Black History Month. MLK Day. Might want to put MLK Day on there.
Yeah.
But yes, Sarah, that's great. Go ahead, continue.
No, I just was gonna the same thought again, just to continue, just to be thoughtful, to continue your idea, Don, which is that we not do things quickly, but that we be thoughtful and put things down and go back and forth a little. But if people want to start a list now, I can, or the secretary can start typing them, and then we can add to it later.
Well, let me have Aurora focus on the meeting, and Ted, you had a comment, and then I want to go back to Eric for a second.
Yeah, again, to echo what Sarah said, I agree with Eric. I'm on board with all of those, but I think that we should go through this, whether we go through it with a Google Doc or what have you, but any of the debate or discussion on the day should be done in a public forum like this. So whatever we come up with, 25 days, whatever we come up with via emails or whatever else we do, we make sure that we vet it all via, with public disclosure in one of our meetings. That's all.
I agree. And
totally agree.
As a matter of, all of us do, I think, and speaking for all of you, as a function of the West Hartford Human Rights Commission, any documents that we create, Google Docs or emails, are public record. So be aware as you engage in this document. But to Ted's point, we shouldn't have a discussion on the Google Doc. We should just be putting words out. And then at our next meeting, Aurora will have an agenda item that says, discuss Google Doc list of proposed observances. And actually, I feel like an idiot because in my job I left in May, I was managing a website for LGBT sports, and I made a calendar list on a Google Doc of all the important LGBT days that needed to be observed, but sort of out of sight, out of mind. Eric, I have a request for you. I had this policy at one TV station I worked at, is if somebody pitched a story, they had to write it. Would you be interested in starting the Google Doc and sharing it with all of us?
As soon as I figure out how to do a Google document, absolutely.
Sarah, do you want to help Eric?
Actually, I'm doing it as we speak, if that's okay. I'm
Perfect.
sorry.
Perfect.
I'll
That's
throw
great.
it
I
to
love
Sarah.
Sarah. God
It
bless
is. The only thing it is okay.
you. Thank you, Sarah. Don't ever leave us. All right. Unless there are any other questions or concerns, and Takesha, hopefully the puppy's okay. My dog thinks that Zoom is attention time, so I've got this dog staring me in the face, making me feel guilty. I'm going to move on to the next item, which is back to Ted. Would you give us an update on your outreach efforts for an SRO spokesperson from the police department?
Yeah, I can get the SRO from Connor to speak at our next meeting. My only comment was that with everything that we have, come across now between central planning, administration, and everything else, and the Board of Ed, everybody being on board with keeping the SROs, is this something that we want to continue to pursue, or is it something that we're just making an issue out of being the Human Rights Commission?
I'll ask Sarah first. She beat Eric by like 10 seconds or 10th of a second.
Sorry, I don't have an opinion on Ted's question. I'm sorry. I'm happy to go either way on that. I was just going to raise this separate issue, Don, that I think we had gone back and forth with a little bit, which is that there was a question about whether we should be asking people without their supervisors to come to our meeting. So we had talked about bringing a in-the-school psychologist, and then we felt like that wasn't okay without the approval of the superintendent, blah, blah. So I'm nervous about bringing in this SRO without the chief of police. I just want to make sure we go through protocols, is the short way of saying what I'm saying in a long way. But I'm also fine with dropping it. I'd like to hear from everybody else.
Before I go to Eric, let me go back to Ted since Sarah's asking a question. Will your SRO be risking either discipline or punishment, or are they violating any policies by speaking to us without supervision?
Well, two things. One, to answer that question, no, because of course he checked with his supervisor beforehand about that. And I guess it would also consider on the line of questioning too. You could get to a point where it would require his supervisor, and I'm sure that he would let us know that. But just for general questions, he can answer them on his own. Towards the other comment that Sarah made, and I'm sure you're gonna ask everybody, Don, but as far as pursuing it, the reason I brought that up is because you have so many different disparate, political leanings in that whole group that I said that's for the SROs, that it's not a conservative issue, it's not a liberal issue, it's not a moderate issue. I mean, everybody in all of those groups follow that whole spectrum between liberal through moderate all the way to conservative, and we've seen to find a general consensus that everyone wants to keep the SROs. So are we just pursuing something that really no one other than us wants to pursue?
Before I acknowledge Sarah and Eric, and I still have to go back to Eric, I must challenge you on the word everyone. Unless I was either deaf or blind, my observation was that not everyone at that gathering we attended together was in favor of keeping SROs. Unless that's changed.
That gathering wasn't a West Hartford gathering. I'm talking about the Board of Ed for West Hartford, the central planning for West Hartford, administrations located in West Hartford. I'm not talking about that group because that group was not a West Hartford group. I'm talking about West Hartford right now.
Okay, I'm confused because it was held at the Elmwood Center. I saw you and myself and other neighbors like Aurora there. There were West Hartford people there. And I'd like to recognize Aurora before we go back to Sarah and Eric, because Aurora was one of the organizers.
Hey, Aurora Melita here. I think I just want to clarify that I think what Ted is saying is that the organization that came in to assist Representative Gilchrist was not a West Hartford organization. And I think what Dawn is trying to convey is that the participants that showed up for the conversation that were from West Hartford did not all have the same view. So I think that's why Dawn is challenging the word everybody. So I just wanted to share that I think that's what you're both saying, kind of referring to different groups. But I think I just wanted to share that.
Ted, did you want to respond?
Oh, no, I mean, there were West Hartford people there, but the group itself was not a West Hartford group. The group, the individuals I'm talking about is the Board of Ed, the central planning, administration at the schools, the police force, all the West Hartford groups. And those groups in and of themselves run the whole gambit between liberal and conservative. And they all have the same opinion of keeping the SROs.
Okay. I'd like to go to Eric next and then come back to Aurora and Sarah. Eric?
This is Eric. So I would like to go back to Ted's initial speech and substitute the word for a majority instead of everyone, which I think would calm some concerns and especially acknowledge Dawn's point. And I think that if there are, obviously the Board of Education is democratically elected, and we entrust those people to make those decisions for us. And the vast majority has spoken at additional central planning. So I think I do agree with Ted. We may be trying to go into an issue that the people of West Hartford have already spoken on. And if we're not in congruence with what is the general town feeling, while at the same time not failing to acknowledge what a potentially unrepresented individual body is saying and talking about, I think our efforts might be better utilized elsewhere.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ted. Sarah, did you want to add something?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify one of the points that Ted made where he was speaking of the spectrum of ideologies. And I just wanted to point out that I don't see this as an issue rooted in ideology or left or right. To me, this has always been an issue of what do the data show? And while I understand that certain ideologies can make you sort of have what is often referred to as a knee-jerk reaction, all police are good, all police are bad. What our kids need is more police. What our kids need is less police. What I was really hoping that we were asking for was not that, but rather, you know, what's the reality? Like there is a reality. Either they are helpful or they're not helpful. And I was hoping that we could encourage folks to collect a little data so that we know what the actual answer is, not just how people feel about it. But as I said, it sounds like it's been vetted and people have moved on, and I'm not standing in the way of that. I just wanted to clarify that this was never for me personally, and I don't think for the commission about ideology. It was about what's best for our children.
I'm going to go to Aurora next, unless Ted, do you want to respond to Sarah since she name called you?
No, that's
Thank
fine.
you. Aurora, do you have a statement or comment?
Invoked you.
Invoked you, sorry.
Yep.
Hey, I'm new at this show.
Responded to, that's all.
I'm just doing my best here. Isam is the master at this. Aurora Melita.
Yeah, Aurora Melita here. I just wanted to share, I was under the impression that I think like the continuation of the conversation was more because our members wanted to gain, you know, a deeper understanding and education firsthand, right? Because we weren't all able to go to the event, right? So I think that it was coming from with the goal to obtain more information. So, and if we decide as a commission that we no longer, you know, want to continue to gather information on the subject, then I think that's the question you're asking as well, Ted, right? Is do we want to continue to educate ourselves on this issue, right? Is that my understanding of what you're asking?
Well, what I'm asking more than anything else is because it was framed as should we keep the SROs in school? So that's not the same as asking what do the SROs do? You know, what do they do on a daily basis? Those are two totally different questions.
Aurora, go ahead. I was going to comment, but I'll ask you to go first, please.
No, Don, go ahead.
I don't remember us saying, unless I'm mistaken, I'd have to check the minutes. I don't think we ever said the West Hartford Human Rights Commission wants to suggest getting rid of SROs. Maybe I'm wrong. I think there was a serious question as to are they valuable and are they helping or hurting? But I don't remember us ever suggesting they be eliminated. Ted?
And again, you might be right about that, Don. But in the final analysis, does one equate to the other or no?
I don't think so, but that's my personal opinion only. Aurora?
Yeah, I think that we had like a discussion with a lot of different viewpoints, and people had kind of different opinions, but we all agreed, from my understanding and my recollection, we all agreed as a commission that, you know, we're all over the place. We don't have enough information on this. You know, some concerns were raised by students that we had heard of. So we wanted to just do like a fact-finding mission, right, and get a better education. And at least that's what I remember. I see some hands going up, so I don't know if they're going to agree or not. But I was under the impression we were just trying to kind of figure out from different perspectives, you know, how this works, you know, what it accomplishes. Does it support the community? Does it hurt the community? And that I don't remember taking a stance as a commission one way or the other. I didn't think we were there yet. I think the more that we learn about it, you know, to be honest, Ted, the more that we learn about it, the more we may want to step back from it, because it seems like West Hartford may be in a good standing with SROs, but that may not be the case in other towns. But we're the West Hartford Human Rights Commission, you know, so that's at least that's the end of the end of that was like my personal thoughts of kind of where we're going after discussing this issue. But so anyways, I'll stop now.
Sarah, I think your hand was up first, or did I make a mistake?
No, Sarah?
Yeah, I think you said it beautifully, Aurora. I think that captures where we're at. I think what we wanted to know was, is this harming our children? And if so, should we do something about it? Or are there ways in which they could be better for our children? And I think where I always fell was, let's find out. Like, let's collect some data. So I think Ted and I really resonated together on the idea that we should find out what's happening in West Hartford. And I would hope that our conservative allies would be interested in something that costs us a lot of money. And can we justify the expense? And so I would just like to ask them to tell us that there's evidence that the expense is worth spending on our town. Of all the things that people are always trying to cut, this is one area that we might fiscally responsibly look at. But again, I'm not pushing the issue. I'm just saying what we were going to do was ask that a group be, not us, that a group be put together that could find out how to document all the good things that the SROs are doing so that we have that data.
All right. I want to ask the commission, whether we want to invite Ted's speaker. But before I go to that step, I'd like to just give you a quick update. You may have seen an email from me, maybe not to Keisha because of all the email things. Keisha, please make sure I get your email address correct. The West Hartford Public Schools, as I predicted, immediately shot down any person besides an administrator. And the deputy superintendent has offered to come to any meeting and make a presentation on how SROs work with the schools. I don't know if they'll address the financial aspect, Sarah. That's a really good question. But they will make a presentation if we wish to. So my question now is, knowing that we could have an assistant superintendent and an actual SRO, does the commission want to vote as to whether we have these two people or some other person we haven't thought of yet, like maybe Jillian, come speak to the commission about SROs, or would you all prefer that we just move on? Takesha, I saw your hand go up.
I know I think I've asked this before, but but I'd like to, before we move to that part, which I'm happy to have the discussion. This is Takesha speaking. Before we have the discussion, I'd like to center back on to what end? Like, what exactly are we as the commission hoping to do with any of this information and in this discussion?
Before I answer, does anyone else want to throw out their answer? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Aurora Melita.
Sorry, yeah, Aurora Melita. So I would think that, you know, the purpose of this was to get down to figure out how we felt as a commission within West Hartford. For me personally, I would think if we were to continue down the road, that we would be putting together information to hand off to that the statewide, like, I don't know if it's called the Statewide Human Rights Commission, but the organization that we had met, like that some of our commissioners had met with, I think over the summer, because they were interested in starting. That would be, you know, again, for me personally, if we were to continue putting in time and effort into this particular issue, it would be to compile what we have learned and to share it with them, because they're have, you know, if we determine that it's not something we want to pursue in West Hartford, that would be how we can utilize the information that we've learned, I would think. But that was just my thoughts on it.
Well, all I was going to say to follow up is that I would not expect our commission to be taking any stand other than to gather information, and as Aurora eloquently said, to share that with greater powers that be. But either I'm out of the loop and I haven't noticed what Ted pointed out as far as all of these bodies of official West Hartford organizations all endorsing SROs. I must have missed that. Busy times, crazy holidays, COVID. But for my own edification, I would like to learn more about SROs. I personally would like to learn more. And it may be, and I'm just going to suggest this, that if we invite the SRO Ted has located, the deputy superintendent that I have contacted, we may, at the conclusion of that presentation, those presentations, we may make a vote to just say, okay, we've learned something. End of subject. But that's where I'm at. Eric.
Oh,
sorry, Eric, please, and then Sarah.
Dawn shared an email. This is Eric. Dawn shared an email from, I think, was it from Tom Moore?
Yes. Or it was the deputy superintendent.
Morrow, I think.
Was it Tom? Okay.
Yeah, Andy Morrow.
Andrew Morrow.
It was either Tom Moore or Andy Moore.
Yeah.
But
Andy
they
Morrow,
speak the same. They share the same position, obviously. It was unequivocal in its support of the SROs. Yes. There was no misinterpretation of that. So, Dawn, I submit to you that reading between the lines, or not even between the lines, just really looking at the plain meaning of what was said, that position is clear. So I know you indicated you may have missed that statement or policy position, but it was inescapable from that email.
You're right. You're right. I get a lot of email, and I forwarded that one. I did read it. Ted, please, and then Sarah.
And Dawn, I was just going to reiterate what Eric did. My comments were based on actually that email that you forwarded, that same exact email that Eric's talking about.
And I apologize for being brain dead. Sarah.
I was going to say, I don't see a purpose in having those folks come speak to us. I wasn't at the meeting where you all decided to do that, though, so I didn't want to say that. But I that doesn't serve what I think what I envisioned our role as. And I totally agree with you, Dawn. I'd love to learn more, and maybe we can just ask for a meeting separate from the Human Rights Commission just to learn more. But I think when the police chief was here, he sort of answered all my questions, which are basically, no, they don't do any kind of data keeping.
Yeah.
So that was all. Yeah.
Does anyone want to put forward a motion that we table this and move on and not go ahead? Ted?
I'll put forward the motion that we table it and just, not pursue it from this point forward.
Do we have a second?
Second.
There we are. The motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't see. Which way are you?
Abstaining, sorry.
You're abstaining. Okay. So, thank you. I just wasn't sure. I thought maybe you were voting for Tom Brady or something. All right. So
No,
Aurora,
we all vote for his retirement.
one abstention and whatever the numbers were. I was told there'd be no math.
5 yay, 1 abstention.
Can we step back a second? I meant when we were
Yes.
talking about MLK to bring up the idea of having a representative on the MLK Planning Committee. It's something that we had in the past with Judy Wyman, and then Denise was supposed to take it over, but then Denise had to leave for medical reasons abruptly. And so I don't think we ever did the kind of housekeeping of finding another person to serve. We don't have to. We could be fine just like we are. But in the past, we have had a liaison to that committee. So I just thought I'd make sure that folks who are current here today know that and can make a decision about whether we should pursue that or not.
Okay. I was going to bring that up in open discussion, but you brought it up. So let's deal with it now rather than later. Does someone want to be that person? And what does the role involve, Sarah?
I don't know because I never did it, but I know that the MLK committee for West Hartford, the people that plan the event every year, are a well-oiled machine. I think that they kind of follow the same script every year. So I don't think that there's a lot of heavy lifting. I think it was more just, bringing a human rights perspective to their thoughts and just being a liaison back to us of what they are doing so that, earlier than the day of the event, we're getting a report saying, here's what they're planning. I don't think it's necessary. I think in some ways it's nice for us to show support of the work that they do, which I think is great work. I don't think it's essential. When it was in person, we had a table and maybe that's all we need to do. I just didn't want to lose that thread in case.
I gotcha. The one good thing is it's 11 months away. We don't have to worry about it being a lot of work. Aurora Melita.
I wonder if we want to not necessarily address this in the meeting, but just because not all of our members are on the call, in case somebody is interested. Like I know Isam was the one who did propose the statement, so I don't know if maybe he actually would be really interested in doing this. I know Kristen's wasn't able to join tonight, so I wonder if we should agree to, I don't know, share it through email and see if anyone's interested or not. I just feel bad not leaving the opportunity open to other members.
Oh, I agree. And you read my mind, so thank you. I was going to say, let's just pop this into the next agenda and have a meeting, but let's Takesha first.
This is Takesha Everett. I just want to echo, I agree with Aurora, and I think what we could do tonight is take away the sense that we think it is important for representation on the committee, and then investigate what that means and and come back with a discussion on what that means and who wants to do it.
Great. I'm all for that. I just need someone to do that work. Would someone like to contact the committee, let them know we want to renew our bond and that we are interested in finding out more about how we can help? I just need a volunteer. Takesha?
I'm happy to do that if someone can help direct me on. Okay, perfect. I'll do that.
Great. And that will be on the agenda for next month. Sarah, did you have something to add? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say we should probably, since it's been a few years, and I don't know the overlap on their committee, is sort of start with, would you like somebody from this?
Rather than assume that they're going to just welcome us back. Yeah.
Here's your volunteer, accept them.
Hi, where's the food? Hi, Aurora Melita.
Aurora Melita, do we have a contact person that we can reach out to?
I mean, they're probably just on the website, right?
Tracy Wilson is who I would reach out to.
Tracy Wilson.
I just don't know if somebody knows someone personally, or
I can connect Takesha and Tracy if you don't already know each other.
I think Renee
Okay.
too is also a person who was involved in it.
Say that again?
Renee?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
What is the committee actually called? Because I'm looking on the list of committees and I'm not seeing it. Anybody know? Okay, well, we
I
have
don't
to
know.
find that out. We're gonna have to figure that out.
So who, just to, sorry, Aurora Melita here, just
ahead,
to
Aurora.
clarify, who's gonna get, who's gonna make the connection? I just
Well,
want to
Takesha's
note it.
gonna find out how to contact these two people we just named, and then report back on March 2nd.
Connect Takesha to those two people.
And
Yeah,
Sarah
I
will
think,
do that
okay,
with-
thank you, Sarah.
yes.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. And then we'll have a report next month on what this is about, what it involves, and we'll see where we go from there. And to make sure that they want us to be working with them. Maybe they'll say no. So I have a couple of little things here. I did a listen in on a webinar from a whole bunch of human rights commissions across the state. It was hosted by the chair of the Wethersfield HRC, Deborah Cohen. And I sent this to a few people. I'm not sure if I sent it to everybody. It was about the issue of immigration and stopping deportations of undocumented people. And what Ms. Cohen wanted to do was to gather support for a webinar with a woman who was 19 years old. Her name is Dora. She crossed the border from Mexico on July 5th, 1980. She was fleeing violence from the Civil War in her home country of El Salvador. And they wanted to basically tell this woman's story in terms of what is happening in Connecticut, in terms of undocumented immigrants, in terms of DACA, and to lift up these voices. So far, this has not yet happened. And the question would be, does the West Hartford Human Rights Commission wish to be a part of an ongoing informational webinar to learn more about undocumented immigrants, about DACA, and just as a sidebar, they also, in addition to talking about refugees, they wanted to talk about anti-Semitism as because it was happening around the time of the commemoration of Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass during the Holocaust. So it was sort of a very wide-ranging discussion in terms of talking about the unwanted people who are sometimes throughout history not seen as wanted in people's neighborhoods. And I'm just going to let you know that that happened. And if there are further meetings, I'm willing to attend again, but no decisions were made. We were just invited to be, good neighbors. That's that. Sarah.
Sarah Raskin. So yeah, Deborah's wonderful, and I have no problem with us supporting sort of what the statewide human rights commissions are doing, and she's representing one of them in this work, I know. But I would just also make the point that if we ever did anything official, that we certainly have neighbors within West Hartford who are impacted in this way, and who've reached out to us for help in the past. And
Yeah,
so just at that point, yeah.
I'm a member of a group called ProWo, which is Progressive Women of Connecticut. And we have sponsored local West Hartford families who are undocumented, who are trying to make ends meet. One of them is living in the back of a pizzeria because they have no home. They can't get a place to live. And, those kind of efforts have to be West Hartford efforts for us to be discussing them. But I just went there to listen and to learn. So
no,
I'll
I
keep
think
you all
part
updated.
of the statewide network, and I have no problem with that. I'm not in any way suggesting that we should only ever care about West Hartford. I was just saying that if we did, we could also highlight, there was
Yes.
there was the young woman at Conard whose mom was being deported, and so they're just issues that are within West Hartford for the West Hartford Human Rights Commission, in addition to being good neighbors and good members of the state.
I agree. Is there any other questions or statements about this effort? Otherwise, I'll move on. So, oh, Ted, I'm sorry. Before I move on, go ahead, Ted.
I don't want to say I take issue, Don, but just to follow up on what you said for unwanted. I think one of the biggest issues with illegal immigration is that if you go back in time, if you go back to when my grandfather came over, all the immigrants that came through, especially all Western European and all the European immigrants that came through, it was through Ellis Island, and they were all documented. Everybody knew who was coming in, and then but that was before all social programs and everything else. And then after, when we got the welfare, we got the Social Security, we had all the social programs. To come into the country and to immigrate legally, you needed a sponsor, and someone had to speak for you to come here, and you had to agree that for 5 years, when you got here, that you would not accept any kind of social programs, any kind of money, any kind of health insurance or anything. Everything you or your host family, the people that spoke for you, were actually responsible for you. But now that has gone along the wayside, and that we just have unfettered illegal immigration that comes through the border, and we have no idea who's coming through, and we are responsible for the costs of that. And I think that's one of the biggest issues, and it's not an issue of illegal immigrants or that they want to work or anything else. I work in the construction industry, and believe me, I run into individuals that are here illegally now, and they're some of the hardest workers you'll ever find. That's not the issue. There's a lot of different issues. One from just from a cost point of view, from how it affects a society point of view, from a crime point of view, from now we haven't the slightest idea who the heck's coming through the border. There's a lot more issues than just individuals who quote unquote aren't or unwanted here.
I want to recognize Eric and then Sarah, but before we do, Ted, we share a common heritage in terms of Ellis Island. My family came to Ellis Island. I'm a second-generation American. I use the term unwanted because during the last presidential administration, and I would be surprised if this isn't true still to this day, certain countries had priority in terms of which people get fast-tracked through immigration and which people have to wait years and years for visas or for working. And I call them unwanted. And the reason I use that word is because my parents and my grandparents and other people like your grandparents were wanted, and we wanted to have a melting pot. And now we're basically very selective about which people we want to bring into America. But that's why I meant unwanted. I'd like to recognize Eric, please.
This is Eric. I just want to very briefly point out that, unless I'm mistaken, Ted has suggested that the Western European immigration in the early 1900s was all legal. And I will tell you from familial experience, that is not the case. My great-grandfather came from Western Europe, could not afford a ticket on a transatlantic boat. He got a job working on the boat as a steward. And as soon as the boat docked, he jumped off the boat and ran in and was not caught and established his life here. So certainly from Western Europe, we can trace it back to that area. So I do want to put out there that not everybody who came from Western Europe in that era was legal, invited, or wanted.
Before I go to Sarah, Ted wants to respond. He was invoked.
Eric, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but back in that time, there was no government officials waiting on the other side of the border, welcoming them in and allowing them to break the laws of the land, and actually encouraging it. Hence the reason he had to jump off the boat.
Before I go to Sarah and then Takesha, Eric, did you want to respond, or should we just move on to Sarah?
He was also this is Eric. He was also naturalized like pretty much everybody else at some point. I mean, nobody really knows when it happened, but there's no bodies out to get him. He was just accepted and eventually registered, and so history went.
I'm glad he did, Eric. Sarah Reskin.
Hi, this is Sarah Raskin. I just wanted to ask that we not sort of put forth history lessons in this meeting. I don't think it's helpful because much of what Ted said is not factually accurate, and I don't want to get into a whole thing of debating back and forth. It doesn't seem like an appropriate use of our time. I'll just say quickly that the laws changed considerably. So what was considered, they did it legally then is not possible now. And so it's apples and oranges. You just can't compare them. But the other thing, the bigger point that I think Ted made that I don't want to let stand in this recording unquestioned is the notion of cost. Because the truth is, most of these folks are getting taxes taken out of their paychecks, and yet they are unable to access most services because they're afraid of being deported. And so, especially among like the migrant farm workers in Connecticut, all of their tax money is going into our coffers and they're not able to take advantage of any of it. So again, I don't want to get into a whole history lesson on immigration laws, which is complicated and has changed a lot. And I think as Dawn was pointing out, changed intentionally to keep certain people out and let other people in. And then, million other issues we could talk about. So
I'll go to Takesha in a minute, but first, Ted, you were invoked.
I didn't know we were talking about migrant farm workers. Are we talking about illegals, or are we talking about people that are?
So I don't know what that term means, but we're talking about people who are undocumented.
Okay, so people that are here illegally.
People that are undocumented. I'll say it
Oh,
again.
well, people that are here illegally. So you're telling me the people that are here illegally that are paying taxes without a social security number or anything else? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah. So all of the farm workers that I work with,
Are they-
I'm sorry, Ted. Let's have Sarah respond.
they are getting taxes removed from their, some of them are. Of course, there are the ones that, like the Yale legal group came up with, the Granby farm that wasn't paying people at all, unfortunately, and basically using them as slaves. But yes, most of them are getting taxes taken in.
And again,
Ted.
are they here illegally or not?
I think Eric wants to.
Eric.
Eric, go ahead.
I have to jump on with what Sarah said. I think we're getting way off track here. And this is not what we're trying to do here. And I think there's a lot of good discussion and talk we can have. But this is not we're heading way askew here.
I'm going to let Ted have a final say then. Takesha.
Well, I'm just saying that Sarah made a claim, which is fine. And I'm just questioning that claim. Are these individuals here illegally or not? Are they on a work visa? Are they here illegally? They're having taxes taken out of their check.
Ted, I will happily share information via email. How's that? So that we can move on in the meeting.
Then there's no reason to invoke it in the meeting then.
I think if we were to fact check every single thing every single person said, there'd be people who say that they don't agree. Takesha, did you want to make a statement?
So I'm going to start by saying that I'm very triggered by this conversation, mainly because there are a lot of words that are being used that are harmful to people, and there are a lot of facts that are being misconstrued about history. And my first statement before I said this was to say, I don't think we should be in the business of having a history lesson every time we come on the phone calls or these meetings. But I also think it is somehow useful for us as a commission who focuses on human rights to learn and teach ourselves and to unlearn the things that we have learned falsely in the history of this nation. And I think that goes for all of us, not one of us, but all of us. And I think we would be collectively served in doing that as a group, but not in this forum.
Thank you, Takesha. I acknowledge and accept and thank you for your comments. I think that you've summed that up quickly. Would anyone else like to have something to say before I move on to the next topic? Aurora Melita.
So I kind of share everyone's sentiment. I think we've gotten a little off course, and personally, I'm also triggered by some of the things that were said. You know, when we talk about undocumented and there being a cost that is unfair to pay, or we use the word criminal. I have a big issue with that, to the point where I think maybe if we agree as a commission, if we want to do an education, a public education about this, great. But to continue like debating it like this is probably unproductive. And then also, I just wanted to know, Dawn, if you could reframe what the ask was about this, because I actually now I apologize. I can't remember where we started.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to conclude with that. I do think I'll go beyond unpredictable. I think it's counterproductive to our work. So we were invited as one of the one of the Connecticut Human Rights Commissions to join with other commissioners of other towns to attend a webinar to discuss immigration, and I'm reading from an email, the stopping of deportations of undocumented people. It is regarding the fight to honor the human right to seek asylum before and after reaching American soil. This meeting was to discuss the plight of Dora Rodriguez from El Salvador. She came to this country in 1980, and the effort was to try to have a statewide webinar, and her town, Wethersfield, rejected it, saying that the political climate did not see that as something that would be helpful to their town. And because Wethersfield said no, the folks who contacted me, Deborah Cohen, chair of the Wethersfield HRC, suggested that perhaps together, all of the different towns could have a joint discussion. So we had a discussion, and we're still hopefully going to be talking about it. And as I mentioned, there was a side discussion about anti-Semitism in terms of how it intersects with the debate over immigration. It is still in the works. What I will do is, if everyone agrees, I will contact the people who contacted me, ask them for an update for our next meeting, and then present that at our next meeting if we wish to discuss it. I can probably just email you all before then, and we can decide via email whether we want to continue, because I do see how we went off the tracks. Ted?
Is it open forum like we do here? Where everybody can basically speak. No one is really censored or anything else. It's an open forum discussion.
We're not at that point in the agenda, but there is an open discussion coming up next.
No.
I
mean, what you're proposing, the webinar, is that an open forum discussion?
Oh, the webinar was the original one. The one that I attended was just HRCs, just Human Rights Commissions.
The one you're proposing now with the
one that's being proposed, I'm not proposing it. The one that's being proposed was to have an open forum. Yes.
So it's open forum, just like we have here, where everybody can speak. No one's silenced or anything like that.
As far as I know, that was the proposal. But like I said, nothing has been decided yet. So my answer to your question is, I don't really know.
As far as you know, yes. Then.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Unless there's any more comments on this subject, I'm going to move on to the last thing before open discussion. Last night, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I moderated. I feel like that senator from Florida, Marco Rubio, who needed to get water right in the middle of his response to the State of the Union. I moderated a discussion with pediatric experts from CCMC. It was co-sponsored by our commission, by West Hartford Pride, by several other groups. It was broadcast live on WHCI, and it's on YouTube, and I sent you all a link. The purpose was to answer questions about gender diversity and children. We had, at one point, 65 attendees. We had more than a dozen questions, and 2 doctors made presentations and then answered participant questions. It was a big success. I got an email from Jazz Jennings' mom. If you don't know Jazz Jennings, she is a famous transgender Harvard student who came out when she was 5 years old, and she wrote a book called I Am Jazz. And her mom's a great advocate. It was informative, it was entertaining, and it was interesting. And I'm very proud to have moderated the discussion. And I had a personal connection to it as well. So thank you, Sarah. That is the conclusion of the agenda items other than open discussion. Is there anything anyone wants to discuss that we haven't already talked about? Eric. Oh, Eric first, then Ted.
I'd just like to say that I had the privilege of attending the seminar that Dawn led yesterday. It was fantastic, extremely informative, and eye-opening. And I would encourage anyone who was unable to watch to catch the replay.
Thank you very much. Aurora, maybe you want to put it in the minutes. We could put the link. Ted, do you have a question?
Yeah, from the last meeting, we were going to cover SEL. You guys had asked me if I could find any kind of opposing groups for SEL.
I remember that. Yes, that's right.
And it's fine that it didn't make it to the agenda. I was going to remind you, Aurora, but I figured I'd just cover it in the open discussion. I have found other groups, and I've actually found other people. My problem that I'm running into right now is that they are a little bit frightened to come out because of how vehement people have attacked them when they've ever come out against certain things. And I've also been doing a little research as to any kind of teachers or any students that have been punished coming out speaking against the SEL curriculum. And I've actually found evidence of both. But I'm still in the process now of trying to get people who are willing to come out and speak about it, because everybody I've run into now up to this point have been scared to come out due to being attacked about their opposition to it. So I just wanted to keep you updated as to that's what's going on with what I've been doing with the SEL.
I was not able to attend any of the town council or board of education meetings in which SEL was discussed, but the ones I watched on YouTube at home, the speakers all gave their names and addresses, which is a matter of public record. That might be one avenue to pursue in terms of getting people to speak.
I'm sorry, why? I feel like I'm a broken record, and I'm sorry to always be doing this, but, and I guess I sleep through half these meetings. Why would we want to hear opposition to SEL? I mean, all of the research literature supports it.
Well, not all
The
of it.
town, as you said about the SROs, the town supports it. I haven't heard any, the superintendent of schools is in favor of it. I'm just not sure. To me, it sounds like, let's have someone come tell us why the earth is flat. I just, go ahead.
Let me have Ted answer first, and then Aurora, then me.
Well, I'll approach it from one point of view. Individuals are told that they cannot opt out of SEL, which is actually misinformation. They can opt out of SEL. And people are being attacked. There is actually an instance of a teacher that was suspended for coming out against SEL. And for a town that sells a curriculum on the basis of that it's open and everybody's free to speak their mind, and everybody's free to either be for it, opposed to it, all discussions are taken into consideration, no one's going to be punished for what they say, and then to punish people for what they say, then that's a problem.
Aurora?
Aurora Melita here. I just wanted to share based on my recollection of it. I believe it was Dawn introduced it to the commission as, hey, you know, we've had the speaker sharing this information. If any members of the commission have someone that either has opposing views or different thoughts on the subject matter, you know, we're an open book here, so feel free to share if you have anyone interested that may want to speak, just so we're, you know, again, in like fact-finding mission mode. But that's, to my memory, I believe that's how it came to be.
I'm not gonna deny that's exactly correct. Aurora got it right. We had been meeting Sarah to discuss SEL. I'm not sure if you were present or not, I'll be honest. And because there was such a preponderance of opposition that was being publicly presented at Board of Ed and Town Council meetings, I proposed that if those folks would come to our meeting to make their presentations, so that since we had the Board of Ed members make their presentation, that it was only fair that the Human Rights Commission should hear from people as to why they are opposed to it. Sarah Raskin.
Sorry, I'm opposed to that kind of both sidesing. I think the Board of Ed is an elected body that represents our town. I think it's wholly appropriate for us to have members of the Board of Ed. If there were opposing views on the Board of Ed, then I would absolutely say we should have, you know, if there's people on the Board of Ed that are opposed, I would be happy to hear from them. I think that it's a very dangerous, slippery slope to start to say anybody who has strong opinions ought to come. I mean, anybody's welcome to come to our meetings anytime. I'm totally happy for anybody from West Hartford to come to our meetings and view their opinion on any issue in any way. But I don't know that we should be seeking out people that are just average folk who may or may not. I guess I feel like we run a risk of starting to advocate for all kinds of ideas that I wouldn't want to be spreading.
I want to just go back to Ted's point about opting out. In the December minutes that I filled in for Aurora, Mr. Chang, Dr. Chang said, as for opting out, Board Policy 6235 regarding controversial issues states students may not opt out of the study of such topics except for where provided by law. He added the policy instructs teachers to contribute their own thoughts and also be prepared to learn. As Ted said at that meeting, the law provides for people to not participate in activities that they are, you know, their rights are being violated. So I'd have to defer to Eric or another lawyer to ask if you know, this would be something that one could do. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just stating what the policy says and what was stated at the last meeting. Aurora Melita.
Aurora Melita. Sarah, I completely agree with you. And I think that the objective was to allow any members to provide an option for a speaker on an opposing view or a different stance. And we would, as a commission, just as we do for all speakers, either take a vote or discuss if that was something that we wanted to pursue. But I completely hear what you're saying and do agree with you. But I think that's the process that we have for speakers and why we have it in place, right? So that we can make sure that our speakers are credible and that we have a majority vote on why we're listening to them, right?
Yes, and Eric?
This is Eric. Very briefly, I do not know the answer to that question. That's very complicated and well outside of my scope of practice. I
appreciate that. I gotta invoke the lawyer. Ted, I would say that I don't want to speak for everybody, but my feeling is that if you did have a credible person who wanted to speak authoritatively, who wanted to be public, provide their name, that person should be presented to the board so we can then decide, as Aurora has said, or as Sarah has said, decide not to have them here. I'm not against hearing someone authoritative make a presentation that doesn't align with the Board of Ed or other officials, but I do want to make sure it's someone who is not anonymous and someone who is not just, you know, Joe Public. And it's not that we don't love Joe Public, it's just that we're not here to address, we're here to address human rights concerns. And if someone has a human rights concern and they're a member of the public, they certainly should bring them to us, and we will then make a determination as to what goes forward. But we're not a public forum for people to air grievances. This is not, what's that holiday with the pole?
Ugh, yeah, Festivus.
Festivus for the
So
rest of us.
I don't even object to people airing grievances. I just want to spread misinformation. And I just want to ask a clarification from you, Dawn, which is that you said, like, now I've lost the word you used, that people can opt out of, and you used a term that I thought, why would that apply to social emotional learning?
Controversial.
No, it wasn't controversial. It was
It was controversial.
controversial.
Here
Maybe it
comes.
was controversial. I
Secretary
don't,
Chang, said
I
in
can't
Board
imagine.
Policy 6235 regarding
Right.
controversial issues, students may not opt out of the study of such topics except for where provided by law. And Ted pointed out that state law provides an opportunity for people to exercise free speech and the
So-
Constitution.
So as Dr. Chang said when he was here, why would anybody find this controversial? Like, I think that stems from a misunderstanding of what social emotional learning is. And so I just want to be clear to say that, as Dr. Chang said when he was here, it shouldn't be making people feel like they're under attack.
It is, though. And here's Ted and then Eric.
But it does. And, people want to opt out of it. And as a matter of fact, if you go into the UN Declaration of Human Rights, I believe it's article like 27, 26, 27. I forget, I'd have to look it up again. Section 3, that the parent has the right to decide for their child's education.
Eric?
Sure, they can pull them out of the schools.
I'm sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, they can
Sorry,
homeschool.
Sarah.
That's not, but that's not what it states. It also states that they have a right to free education. I mean, I can go through the whole thing, and a parent has a right to say, listen, I want to opt my child out of this. I don't agree with this. This does not, this is not in line with my family's upbringing, my family's code of morals, moral upbringing, or whatever, and they can opt out of it. And it's not, well, you can take your kid out of school. I mean, is that what we've gotten to? Is that, you're only allowed human rights if you agree with social emotional learning? You're only allowed a free education if you agree with social emotional learning? Is that what we're attempting to say?
Unless Sarah has a response.
It's
Yes.
a curriculum. I mean, you enroll your kid in a school with the curriculum. I don't want to argue with you about it, because to me, social emotional learning is just saying love everybody and treat everybody fairly. And so I'm not really getting why anybody would want to opt out of that. But I think the point is, you can't opt out of English. You can't opt out of, doing the math requirements. There's certain things, they put together a curriculum and your kids are expected to follow it. And to me, this is just part of the curriculum, but I will stop.
Let me have Ted respond and then Eric.
Two things. One, English, you need to graduate. Math, you need to graduate. Social emotional learning, you do not need to graduate. Two, I don't necessarily disagree with you. You're stating that, this is what social emotional learning is all about, and I don't know why anybody would be against that. So I say that as a committee, we bring out all of the tenets of social emotional learning. We bring out all of the training for the teachers, everything, all the lessons and everything that's being taught to the students, and we bring that in front of this committee and we vet it, and that way we can make that decision for ourselves instead of guessing as to what it is.
Well, I mean, the presentation that Dr. Chang and Lorna gave was really detailed. I mean,
but that's not vetting the material. You're
Okay.
making a claim as to what this is, and I'm saying, okay, I'm more than willing to vet the material, and we'll see exactly what it is.
all right, let me ask Eric to make a statement and then we'll go from there.
So I only need to make a statement if this is going to continue. Otherwise, if we leave it where it is Ted, Sarah, are we good? Okay,
Oh.
then I yield.
Okay.
I mean, I'd love to hear what you
Thank
have to
you.
say. I don't see us as having a role in vetting the West Hartford curriculum. I don't think that that's in our purview, but I'd love to hear more about social emotional learning. I had no objection to that.
All I was going to do is try to quell the issue and explain how it's an incredibly complicated thing. But if we're good, we're good.
I was going to say that, like the SRO decision, this is an issue that's already been settled. As far as I know, no one's brought a legal case. No one's come to the Human Rights Commission to make a human rights claim that their human rights are being violated. I would think that if we were to dive deep into SEL, number one, it would take us off task from what we are supposed to be doing. And like the SRO decision we made earlier tonight, I think that this is a settled issue. Ted, did you have any response to that?
No, there's no reason to consider the back and forth right now. No, not to continue the back and forth. I'm sorry, right now.
Is there any other issue, topic, or subject that someone wants to bring up before we adjourn? Well, this was a little contentious, but I love you all, and I'm so glad. What?
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. And I love learning, and I'm very excited that we can end this early. Can I have a motion at 8:39 p.m. to conclude our meeting?
Second.
Someone has to do it first, and then we second.
This is Takesha. I move for adjournment.
Takesha, now it's Aurora.
Second.
All in favor?
Deal with that puppy. That puppy's out of control, apparently.
That's crazy puppy. And
What'd
the
that
next
puppy
meeting of the
do?
Human Rights Commission is March 2nd, 2022.
Are you cool,
It's not
Don?
2002.
Don is not cool right now.
Look at the puppy. Look at
Don, you gotta
2002.
get it together.
Wait a minute. What is
Oh,
this?
double
Is it the
puppies.
same puppy?
Oh,
Is it the same
That's-
puppy?
same.
Oh my gosh, they're twins.
Is it the come here, Dennis.
Same
Come over
dog.
here.
That's
Everybody hold up
great.
your puppies.
Wait,
I was trying to
good
keep
job.
him out of the picture so bad. I'm so sorry, y'all.
Dahlia's having
Oh
surgery on her
no,
eye
tone
tomorrow.
of shame.
Yeah, she's having surgery on her eye tomorrow, so please wish her well.
Oh no.
Very sad.
Well, good luck to her.
Thank you. We'll be on WebEx on March 2nd, 2022. And this is the conclusion of our meeting.